far as in the locker room was?
I always liked Roddy. I get along with him.
Right.
Because I knew him from the early days. But a lot of guys didn't like him. He kind of stayed off to himself. You know, he wasn't like, you know, he was friendly, but, you know, always kept himself. You know, and I knew him, so it wasn't like a big deal. But a lot of guys didn't like him. They thought he was a little bit hard to do business with. But Piper was always trying to look out for himself. If you don't look out for yourself in the business, you know, nobody else is going to look out for you.
Right.
And so Piper tried to always look out for himself. He wasn't the biggest guy, not the strongest guy, not the best looking guy, not a big muscly guy.
But he could talk.
But, you know, he knew his spot, and he knew, you know, what his strong points were, and he always pushed those. You know, he capitalized on his abilities, and a lot of people, there's always people who are jealous of the people who are above them or who are making the big money, and there's always those guys that are trying to get your spot.
Right.
You know, that's true in any business.
Right.
But in the wrestling business, it's very competitive, and especially where that kind of money is changing hands. And then, you know, it definitely can get a bit cutthroat.
Right. Do you want to switch to
the place? Who was there? Because guys were coming and going.
Right.
Guys would come and go from that New York territory. Right. You know, boom, and then they'd leave for a while, and then bang, they'd be back, and they'd leave for a while, and then because I was there for 10 years straight, so I saw a lot of guys coming and going and coming and going and coming and going. You know, these guys say, "Oh, that guy will never be back," and then fucking a year later, boom, here they come. Oh, new deal.
Who did you travel with those days?
Well, as long as when Hawkster and I were in the same territory, we traveled together all the time.
Right.
And otherwise, it was me and Greg Valentine for those all years. Greg was a different kind of character to travel with because he, you know,
was he quiet?
He was quiet.
Yeah.
And Greg always had a look on a scowl on his face, like he was mad. And people were scared of him, you know. But I never paid any attention to it, you know. Like if Greg didn't want to talk, and we were driving down the road, we didn't talk for hours. Sometimes it never mattered to me. I didn't take it personal, you know.
Right.
It's just Greg, and I knew Greg. So people were scared of him, you know. They didn't know what to think of Greg. And I used to laugh. I'd be sitting over in the corner laughing because nobody ever knew how to take him. The other wrestlers, you know, if it came down to the match, if there was any problems, the ego problems in the match, I let Greg handle it.
Right.
Because Greg would just steamroll over everybody. I mean, he just intimidated. Like, he had that intimidation factor or something, and people were scared of him. They just didn't know what to think. He was quiet, and he always had a mean scowl on his face, you know. I would say something to Greg and make him laugh, you know, and I knew how to get, you know, right there. And Greg was a great hand too, as far as traveling, because he's the one he showed me like the ropes of the country, going from town to town. Greg knew every town in the United States. I mean, he knew how to get everywhere, and New York and all the big towns, and because we did a lot of driving, even though we did a lot of flying, we also did a lot of driving. Sometimes we'd fly into a main spot and then drive 4 or 5 days, and we drove thousands of miles in all kinds of weather, you know, in snowstorms in Buffalo, New York, and all over Canada, and I mean, you name it, we were driving it, and Greg knew the towns. He knew, you know, a place to go. He knew the arenas, and it was great, easy for me, because then I wasn't out there on my own trying to find these things. I had Greg chauffeuring me, like, you know, and I could take the wheel, but Greg he liked to drive, so, you know, Greg and I was a good team. He drove, and I opened the beer. Cool.
What are your memories of your feud with Ted Dibiase?
I enjoyed working with Ted. He's a great professional. He's a good, you know, great hand. Remember with Virgil, he was a nightmare, though. You never knew what he was going to do. You kind of always had to watch him. Right. You know, you didn't want him hitting you with anything, because boy, he'd clock you or something, you know. But Ted was great. I wish I'd really got a chance to work more with Ted and really have a good. You know, we had a little program, but not. You know, we worked at leading up to the WrestleMania deal.
Right.
But we didn't really get a feature program or anything, any kind of longevity or anything out of it. And I'm sure we could have. That was the barber gimmick going then. But Ted was another guy with his, hair, and he didn't want to, you couldn't. And you had Virgil with no hair, who was bald, so it wasn't a whole lot of cutting going on there. And if that was my gimmick, was to be able to cut hair, and that's how we kept the gimmick over, is guys got their hair cut, right on the TV when I went in, and we did the vignettes and the crazy, and the barber with the crazy eyes, and the coming out with a leaf blower, and and chasing people around with chainsaws, like I did on one of the old what was Vince's show called there, the
Superstars, the Challenge.
No, the TNT.
Oh, Prime
Time.
I know TNT show. Yeah,
the TNT show.
Yeah,
remember the
right.
TNT?
Yeah.
Where you had the talk show, where you sat there,
Right.
sat with the sunglasses on and wouldn't talk,
I remember that.
Jimmy Valiant, Johnny would talk,
Right.
I wouldn't even talk to him. I said, don't talk to me, talk to him.
Right.
It was goofy shit, but it worked. It was funny, that show. I hated doing that show though. You'd have to fly in, because you didn't get a break from your regular schedule.
Right.
You'd have to fly into Baltimore and go out there to wherever town it was, right outside Baltimore. You'd have to drive. It was way out in the woods there to the studio, and you have to do the tapings there, and then you'd have to buckle up all your stuff and run and jump on another plane and fly or drive like a madman to get wherever you're going.